Welcome to the Barker Podcast Collection.
I suck, you suck, I suck at Call of Duty. You suck.
Welcome to the Not Playing Podcast. My name's Rob Howard, and this week I'm joined by
Ian Bruce and Patrick Kane.
You can contact us on email at notplayingpodcast@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at notplayingpod. So we've got our top 5 games of the year coming up in a future episode, but today we're going to talk about some games that didn't quite make the cut.
I really enjoyed Arkham Knight. I know if there's a pitchfork and some rope available, I will be lynched for that, but if you set aside the PC launch events, I can't even think of a word that isn't a load of C words chained together. I found the game itself to have a story that gripped me. It had some of the best moments in gaming, best short moments in gaming for me this year. Some of the excellent sound design. I thought the world felt believable when it worked and wasn't juddering. And it's a game that I completed this year, which is a lot of my games are not games to be completed, like Rocket League and GTA 5 and all the rest of them. You just go in and do them and come out. But Arkham Knight is a game to complete, and I completed it. I haven't completed Mad Max, and the only reason I completed it was the story. I found the story compelling, more so than Arkham Asylum or Arkham City. So it's tragic that Warner Brothers fucked up the PC port. I hope I'm willing to give the next one a shot. It's not going to be day one for me unless it comes with my next graphics card like this one did. But it's a shame. I think that of all the games this year that fucked up, and there were a few, I think, it's a shame that one got such bad PR from the PC port, because actually there was a great game in there.
Yeah, it was totally in my top 10 as well, but I had to put a lot of things before it, even though personally it probably was an even more enjoyable game for me than The Witcher. I felt like everything I did in that game was more enjoyable than elements of The Witcher, you know, like the variety of gameplay in there.
Yeah.
You know, from your little Riddler puzzles right down to your mad tank battles, and you're skulking about Predator takedowns and things, and yeah, the way that they handled that character, is just excellent through and through. The way that they changed the environment and stuff,
that was absolutely amazing. That's one of the best things I've seen for a while.
I'd also say it's probably on my top 10 as well. Although to be fair, I probably only played about 10 games this year anyway. But no, it's like Ian's totally right. It's a real shame that it's kind of its presence and its release was kind of tainted by technical stuff, because actually at the core of it was a really well dialed in game. Again, it's another one of those things where it wasn't really anything new anyway. It was just a very, very refined version of thing that people loved before, and you know that's all it had to be really. But it was even more than that. I think there was new ideas that really proved themselves to be perfect for those kind of games in general. And some of the particle effects in it, I'm trying to work out how they did those, because they look amazing.
Okay, I've got one I wanted to quickly mention called The Beginner's Guide. This was the follow-up to the Stanley Parable.
Yeah.
And it was a really interesting game where you're basically, it kind of starts with a narration by the actual game designer, and he's basically talking about a friend of his that he knew that was a very talented game designer, and he's like, he wants to show you around some of this guy's games. And I can't really say much more without spoiling it, but you come away from it feeling like, wow, what the hell was that? You're running around sort of unfinished levels, sort of fragments of ideas. You're sort of really getting into the mind of this guy and the kind of thought processes he went through. I think you, Pat, should definitely check this out.
You probably see in my face there going, yeah,
it's
well up my alley.
It's like 2 hours long, it's just a guy, and it's got that same sort of offbeat kind of presentation to it. Where you just got this guy kind of talking to you while you're going around like sort of half-finished Counter-Strike levels, and him sort of explaining like why he wants to sort of show you all this stuff. So it's a great kind of like walk-through sort of experience. Doesn't require a lot of time. It's like an hour and a half, I think.
I think I read that the developer of those two games, again, it's a real good example of reductionism, because that game is kind of like level and it's level design and narration, isn't it? Essentially, that's kind of all those games are. That they're excellent for being that. But I think that guy, he hasn't actually been making games for very long, and I'm sure I read that there's kind of a limit to the kind of things you can do, and so that's how he's kind of making those games that way. And that's really interesting to me, because that's exactly what I fucking do, because I've only been doing it for 5 minutes, so I only do the things that I can do, and it's weird to see someone else like their games being constructed in that way.
And making it work.
Because I do that myself, and making it work really well, and making such a cool game out of it, such a cool end product.
Very difficult to say anything more about that game, but just play it, just try it out. I think I picked it up in a Steam sale, but it's not very expensive. Was there anything that didn't quite make the cut for you then, Pat?
There was a bunch of kind of very short VR things, but a lot of them weren't games. A lot of them were barely games or had partial gameplay elements, but you would kind of more describe them as interactive experiences. Most of them involved dinosaurs or space, and there was loads of cool things. But if we're talking games, that's you've already, like I say, I didn't play a huge amount of games this year. I spent a huge amount of time this year learning how to make games, and I suppose playtesting some of my own counts as that game time. I've definitely spent hours in No Space Like Home, just floating about in space, and I could do that because I'd made something that would randomly generate, so I could get a new experience out of it every time I tried it. So I suppose I spent a lot of time playing my own games this year.
The circle is complete. You don't need anybody else.
The circle is complete.
Self-sufficient.
It's kind of a time thing, though, isn't it? It's like now when I play games, but back a couple of years ago, that time was all for just playing games, and now it's like, well, I could play something new, or I could make something new. And that's kind of what my time competes for now.
Yeah.
That's also, like, I think while there were a bunch of really cool games out this year, there wasn't as many kind of obvious must-haves as maybe there have been in previous years. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but
is that perhaps because, I mean, for me it was just like, fuck me, another massive open world game. So I didn't get through as many, which is why once I finished Fallout, I was so keen to kind of get through as many smaller experiences as I could, because I'd been putting them off for so long. But is that just because you're not really up for committing yourself in that kind of way anymore?
I just didn't feel like there was an Elite this year.
Elite Dangerous? Yeah,
there wasn't something that made me kind of rethink necessarily what a game could be.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. Elite definitely did that. By being that kind of semi-experiential, semi-marketing, semi-trading, fighting, smuggling, choose your own destiny, kind of choose your own adventure thing.
It was a massive semi. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, it was space boners all round.
But I mean, you could argue that Elite is a game this year, because it's still carrying on. They've just released the Horizons pack, which I think you wanted to mention, didn't you, Ian? Or did you get that?
I did get that. I have not played a lot of the planetary stuff.
Likewise.
I am still finding Elite a lot of looking at the hyperspace screen, and in an hour it's probably 45 minutes travelling and 15 minutes doing shit. And that's fine. That's okay. You put the podcasts on. I've got a dual monitor set up so I can make sure I'm not flying into a planet and watch some TV. But and I do that with a ton of games. But
you'd probably do that if you were flying in space anyway.
Well, I mean, we're not that far away from self-driving cars, and the thing it's worth thinking about now is when the car is driving you somewhere and you don't have to drive it, what will you do with your time?
Yeah,
Netflix, or read a book, or podcasts, or read. So we're almost there anyway. And if you commute a lot on public, as you do with the trains, Rob, there's a large part of your day where you can't do anything else except for what you've brought with you. So, however, I would like some more combat-y stuff. So, yeah,
I'd like to do some combat over planets. I haven't done any of that. I think I've clocked about 7 or 8 hours on Horizons. Basically, just I took a mission that took me down to a planet. The orbital controls seem very. They're very. What's the word? They make sense.
Yeah,
you
know.
And. Yeah, if you're familiar with Elite Dangerous, you'll know what you're doing once you come to land on a planet.
Yes.
But my God, it's cool when you land on a planet.
Especially when you land on the dark side, so you can't bloody see anything.
I've not tried that before.
That was the first one I did. I didn't do the tutorial. That was the first one I did. And all I could see was like these blinking lights in this dark plane. I could see nothing else.
Damn the realism of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are things to do on the planets. Like you can go and
collect
blow
ore
up
and shit
stations or
there's mining, harvesting, gathering type stuff.
Gathering intel, things like that.
The main reason I bought the Horizons package will be something that I hope we speak of this time next year or the year after, whenever that is. I've confused. Is the multi-crew ships?
Absolutely,
because that excites me a great deal.
Yeah, I thought of it as like an investment for the year because I figure I'm going to be dropping in and out of this as they release this season of expansion.
And it's going to work with the VR headsets that are coming out. I don't want to make this a VR cast, but it will work with the ones that are coming out in 2016. And that's good because I've spent many sessions with the Oculus Rift DK2 on my head for 3 hours going, wow. Holy shit! Wow.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. It's worth mentioning that the system specs for the Horizon stuff in VR is a bit steep, apparently.
Well, they recommend a 980 and stuff, but that doesn't mean it won't work on the 970. It just means you'll have to turn some shit down.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, like Elite is one of the. I've said this before. It's one of the most intensive games in VR. But that doesn't mean you can't play it. It just means you have to turn everything off. You have to put everything in low, and it will run fine. And it's still a different experience for doing it in VR.
Yeah.
So
VR still works without the visual fidelity that 64-bit 1440 monitor provides. It still works in VR with stuff turned down. You can still lean forward in your seat and look up at a space station as you're docking and stuff. Christ, that puts the hairs up on the back of my neck. It's just
every time.
Holy shit balls! Look at the scale of that.
Hundreds of times I've landed and I've docked in those space stations, and every time it's just how can it still be blowing my mind? How can that still? How am I not numb to that yet?
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't want to be reminded of this when I consider putting my pre-order down tomorrow. It's going to weigh heavily on me.
F5. Sell a kidney. F5.
Yeah.
Sorry, what's this podcast about? I've missed what we're
things that didn't quite make the cut in 2015.
Okay.
Was there anything else? We don't have to go on forever.
No, I've got two that I want to mention that may become my games of the year this year. One is Killing Floor 2, which is by the guys who make Rising Storm, Red Orchestra, the sequel to Killing Floor. You can see what they've done there.
Okay.
On the show next week, we might perhaps say a game is like Left 4 Dead, but with different things. This is more like Left 4 Dead in that it's the future and you're fighting zombies and the undead and shit. But it's one of the most intense experiences I've ever had. It is completely unforgiving. It's not. If you get in a good, if you position yourselves rightly on buildings and in windows like Left 4 Dead, you're going to do it. You have to work together. You have to stick together. The enemies are tough. Some of them are pretty easy, but a lot of them are tough, and they will swarm the living shit out of you.
So it's like Left 4 Dead.
At the very base level, it's like Left 4 Dead. It's a 6-player co-op game.
6-player?
6-player, yep.
Wow.
Radchik and I have been playing it. I've only got like 12 hours in it, apparently. It feels like fucking a year and a half, the stress that it's causing me. But you do spend most of your time running away from shit. Or running over to another player so they get picked up by the thing that's chasing you. There's a bit of a learning curve to start with. Some of the complications of the configuration of the character is a little bit... Oh, that's not Left 4 Dead, is it? You don't just choose a character. You can choose classes and you can mix classes. You can do different bits of the classes at the same time. But it looks amazing. I'm not a great one for plugging YouTube channels, but there is a YouTube video on my YouTube channel with it. And it runs at 1080, 60 FPS on my machine on Ultra, and it's one of the best looking games I've played for a while, and it's Unreal 3.5, I think. It's not Unreal 4. So, if you like Left 4 Dead and that kind of, and Vermintide, it really, I liked Vermintide, but it felt like the variety of how the rats were attacking us was a bit samey. And it's still a good game, but I played so much Left 4 Dead that it was, and now we have to do this to get past this. Vermintide, the swarming was incredible, and they were all over you, and I'm dead because we haven't worked as a group. But it just felt like they were, and now it's the rats again.
Is it possible that you prefer this because it involves shooting things with guns?
It's possible. Yep. It's possible. I don't mind the.
I'm just being. I don't mind asking.
I liked the combat of Vermintide. I'm not dismissing Vermintide, and I would love to play it with everybody again. But I found this to be more stressful and also more rewarding because there's XP. You level up. Your level ups unlock different perks that you can use for your different characters.
Is there loot?
It's only XP. So when you kill stuff, you get money, but that money buys you different weapons for this match that you're playing, and you don't carry that money over to the next one. So it's a wave-based game. The first wave is quite easy. You get some money from that, you buy new weapons for the next wave, which is substantially harder. And by the time you get to wave 10 or 11 and the boss is after you, you're going, oh, I've spent my shit not wisely. I should have bought something else. Where's the medic? And I love that kind of... You have to go and find somebody to help you instead of just going, right, you get in that corner, I'll get in this corner, and we'll be all right. There's none of that with this. It is...
is it more like... It seems like a map rather than... Because in Vermintide, they're like massive, huge areas, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
It feels more of a quest that you're going on.
They are definitely arenas, not open worldy city type places, but they feel like real places. They're not Quake maps.
It looks like it might be more of like a Payday kind of thing to me than a Left 4 Dead kind of thing.
It's not. It's more Left 4 Dead. There aren't specific things you have to do every time. You just have to survive. Right.
So it's like that mode in Left 4 Dead where they pile the stuff on you.
Yeah.
Rather than the get it from A to B.
It's exactly like that, but done in a very beautiful way. So I've only played 12 hours for that. I think it will probably be my go-to game for a while from co-op weekly thing.
Cool.
And I thought I'd lost my Twitch shooting ability. I thought when I started it, I thought, I'm getting a bit old for this, but actually I found it coming back, and you can get some amazing shots. And it does like a bullet time thing. I'm not quite sure how or when it does it, but frequently it'll go into bullet time, and you'll have something jumping at you, and you shoot them in the head, and their head explodes, and so their headless body is jumping over your body, and there's a lot of cool visuals if you like your head explodey eye candy. It's probably not the
Awesome.
right time of human nature to be saying that, is it?
Maybe not. I just wanted to mention Undertale. I played this game. It's completely deranged. It's on Metacritic. It's the highest scoring game of the year. I can understand why, because it's incredibly subversive and it's playful. It's basically a very basic. I think it was made in Game Maker, but it's become a little bit of an underground phenomenon, and it's kind of like a 2D sort of JRPG type thing where you're playing this. I think it's a little girl, and you're just going around. You go down into some caves where some monsters live, and every time you go into combat with a monster, you're kind of allowed to not engage them and kill them. There's kind of an alternative way to deal with them, and it might just be sort of complimenting them, saying nice things to them, telling them a joke, and that's kind of the core thing of it. It's not very long for an RPG. It's like 8 hours, but the ending is so bizarre. I kind of had to Google what the fuck Undertale
Instead of
and then
Undertale
go
walkthrough.
and then go, oh, okay, fine, all right then, and then carried on.
Okay, that's fair enough.
But I kind of just had to mention it just because I'm pleased that I managed to get through the whole thing. It was a bit of an effort, I won't deny. And yeah, so yeah, that's a game that I played. Did you have any more, Ian?
The only other one I wanted to mention, and there's a pattern forming, is a game called Squad, which came out. It's been in early access for a while.
Okay.
I'll try and keep this short. It's basically Armour, but without the vehicles on smaller maps. It's militia versus US forces, Russians versus Americans. It can be 50 versus 50. It's basically conquest mode where you have to take points and hold them and then move on to the next one, but they're chained together, so you have to do them in an order.
Oh yeah, I saw the page for this. It was like with proper voice communication and like a Battlefield, but much more serious and better.
I'm glad I brought it up, Rob, because I can see your serious tone is appreciating what. In a few years there might be a Squad 4, and then you could get that. You little smear.
No, it seems like the sort of game that like Total Biscuit would very much approve of.
Yes, it's one of those mill sim type things, but it's accessible. The community is amazing. The voice. I know you've mocked the voice comms because you're a little bottom smear, and that's all right. We love you for that.
It's just something that is not important to me in my life at all.
No, that's all right.
But I appreciate it is to others.
Oh, I'm glad you said that. That's very patronising. Thank you.
Sorry, I don't know what else to say.
But the voice comms are great. And all of the games I've played, they've been 35, 40 people aside, and everybody's working together. And for a game like this, that's really unusual. I'm sure when the masses come in, there'll be trolling and people playing fucking Britney Spears over the voice channels and stuff.
Yeah, but will they? Because this doesn't seem like a game for them.
I don't think it is. There's a risk that it will be marketed like it's Call of Duty, which it absolutely bloody is not. You have to work as a team. It's like Killing Floor and the other team-based games that I enjoy very much.
It's kind of in the title.
Hidden and Dangerous.
Yes, I would say it's more like Hidden and Dangerous than probably anything else I've played.
I would love to have that sort of gaming experience again with multiplayer,
that would...
especially especially with like people I know. That's one of those games that's really good to play with people
we
you know.
played
I
the
think.
living shit out of that when it came out. Rob, myself, and Adam
Yeah.
and others, and it was.
Can you shoot through the floor?
What happens when you shoot the engine block of this truck? Kaboom! With all
good
of us sat
times.
in the truck. And that's you can get that game for free on the internet legally now. It's not aged well. But
Oh, really?
You can get it for free.
First one.
Yeah. But this is kind of like that, but it is more like Battlefield. It's more Milsim like, and it's completely. I've probably shot 10 people and died 200 times, and I still have no idea who shot me. It's one of those. There's a bullet whizzing past your head, and then you're lying on the floor bleeding out type games. But I really like that because it's more what people say combat is like, instead of I've got the perk, I can get the AC-130 and then bomb everyone, which is not.
It's more realistic and immersive rather than amped up and it's, sexed up.
Yeah, and it's about the team instead of your individual goals. It's about working as a unit to get the job done. And I really like that kind of thing. Especially when you can do it with randoms and you just pop in a squad of 9 and they're all working together. The comms are there. People aren't going, I've shot someone, what should I do? It's proper military comms type stuff, which I know is a bit nerdy, Rob. I'm sorry. It's all right. It'll be all right.
No,
But-
it's funny. I just read it and had a little this is totally.
If you like
Ian's
that
cup of
kind of
tea.
thing and have missed it because or armor's too big for you or your machine can't run it, it's worth a look. Check out the videos on the interwebs and see if it ticks those boxes for you.
Sorry, I'm just having a massive nostalgia rush because I've put on a video of Hidden and Dangerous 1 Deluxe completed in 86 minutes, annotated 2D version.
There were some amazing levels in that game. Some absolutely amazing. And when you're doing it
Ahead of its
it
time,
was
in many
absolutely
ways.
ahead of its time. I wonder what
Yeah.
happened to the company that made that. Probably
Wasn't
swallowed
that-
up and farted out by EA or something.
That was Illusion Softworks, who went on to make Mafia, I think, who then got a kind of subsumed by the whole 2K thing.
Oh right, okay,
And
that's a shame.
I think they just got kind of gobbled up into that.
Okay.
But anyway, we digress. I think it's probably time to call it a day as far as 2015 goes.
I just wanted to mention one more.
Go on then.
Which I also just played this last week, which was Gunjack.
Ooh,
Eve
rings a
Gunjack
bell.
on the Gear VR.
Oh,
so
yeah,
this
yeah.
is part of the Eve universe. It's separate from it's kind of the mobile version of Eve Valkyrie, but it's a different type of game actually. It's really cool. It's another kind of like quick 5 minutes of fun kind of game. If you imagine like a VR version of Galaga, that's sort of the gameplay you're looking at here. You get wave. Basically, I'll explain it a little bit better than that. You start off in a hangar, and that's your menu, and basically you're launched into this little pod, which is on the outside of the ship, and you're operating a gun turret. Essentially, it's like when Luke Skywalker's in the Millennium Falcon. It's one of those, but it's
Nice one, kid.
Yeah, it's head controlled, and basically you move your head around, and that will kind of aim at the enemies. But the reason I say it's like Galaga, you get these kind of waves coming in. So there's all these kind of patterns of enemy ships. You get like kind of cloaked ones that will disappear and appear otherwhere. You get like missiles fired at you, and you have to deal with the missiles and stuff as well. The weapons in it are really fun. They're like really ridiculous. There's like these huge kind of beam laser things, which are really similar to the ones in Elite. There's missile launchers. There's smart bombs that will destroy everything on the screen. And you know normal pickups like energy and shields and stuff like that. But the reason I thought it was really good is because it's a mobile VR game, but they've approached the graphics in a really cool way because they know that they're in like a stationary environment. So they've got these really high-end looking graphics. You feel like you're in something that looks better than like a PS4 game because of the way they've kind of baked these textures and used skyboxes in really clever ways and stuff. And it's all like really high frame rate. It performs exactly as a Gear VR should. Did overheat, I think, when I was playing it. So it is obviously pushing it to the limit. At least on the Note 4, it's probably fine on the Blade devices. But it's just really good, like instant immediate fun. And if you like shooting stuff in space, it's kind of like a good 5-minute laugh in your lunch break at work. I think it's a very different game to the Land's End, but it's another model of like what a cool mobile VR game could be, I think.
Some good stuff coming out for the Gear VR now.
Yeah, it's a easier decision to make for developers, because your development time is going to be shorter. You're probably going to be making a shorter, less complicated experience. It's less of a risk because there's already a load of people out in the world that have got Gear VRs. There's quite a large number of people with just the Innovator Edition. So you've already got a product base to sell to. So it makes sense. That's why you're seeing all these. You're seeing quite a lot of mobile VR stuff pumping out all the time. Like there's weekly releases now, basically, for the Gear VR, and you're seeing that because the developers were experimenting with those titles because there were less of investment. Like, so if you're thinking of making a Oculus Rift title or a Vive one, then it's a good idea to make these kind of shorter run products for the Gear VR, knowing that you can actually sell some of them and knowing that you aren't actually investing a lot of time and money to do it.
Cool.
So yeah, it's starting to kick off, but it's cool because you know that's going to be the Rift store and the Vive store when they launch, and it's cool to see what it's going to look like, having these cool like environments where you've got all this content and you're literally in a space selecting it for the first time. That's cool to know that that's how it's going to be when the big boys turn up as well. So yeah, good times.
Indeed.
Cool. Well, that leads us nicely into 2016. This has been the Not Playing Podcast in partnership with notlistening.co.uk, where you can also hear myself and Ian talk about movies and TV on the Not Watching Podcast, and Adam, Ash and Will talk about all manner of funny things on the Not Listening Podcast. You can email us at notplayingpodcast@gmail.com, or you can tweet at or follow us on Twitter at notplayingpod. You can find the show notes for this show at notlistening.co.uk, and if you're listening to us on iTunes, then please do give us a review. Anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for listening. See ya.
With no